35 years or so of investigating this, and I'm sure many years of that people really weren't willing to listen to you. How does it feel that now finally your people are waking up to your research and your investigations, and what do you see for the future?
Well, it's very rewarding to see the public become increasingly aware of these monsters. And of course, because of their increased awareness is why we are winning, as I said a moment ago. Now, when I first started covering Bilderberg, our readers of Spotlight, which is the granddaddy of American free press, our readers were intensely interested, and then our readers talked to other readers, created more readers, and a greater awareness. And that awareness is seeped down now to the point that a lot of broadcasters, a lot of newspapers do give it attention. Again, not as heavily as they do in Europe. Now, you'll notice that the, what's the name of that paper? The name escapes me.
In the States?
The New York Times has covered a great deal of the cover meetings. There's NATO meets in Brussels, a short flight with the Secretary of Defense to hear where he is. That way, they don't have to explain back in Washington why he's out of town, why he was in Paris for NATO thing. He's not back yet. He's not back yet because he's right here at the Bilderberg meeting. They always do this, have these cover events every year, as far as the Americans are concerned. And they have another thing happening in Berlin, which is also another cover, but it's still a short hop, and they're hopping.
For them.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, do you have a few questions you can ask Mr. Tucker?
Yeah, I just need a glass of water real quick.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I'm parched. And Angie, kind of kneel down right there and film us as they... My God.
Hello, the beer.
That'll be later. My vices only come out at night.
Okay, one moment. And whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Yeah, as soon as he gives the cue, you go ahead, Angie. You want me to do like an introduction and then start questioning him, interview him?
That would be great. Yeah, that would be perfect. Just whenever Mr. Tucker's finished with his water or whatever he needs, you know.
All right, and we'll talk as a team, but I'm still conveying his longer term knowledge.
Sure.
Okay, it'll work perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know when.
Okay.
I'll give the count. 5, 4, 3, go.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Mark Anderson, American Free Press editor, and we're covering the 2011 Bilderberg meeting. That is AFP, the foremost national news weekly in the United States. And I'm an apprentice at covering Bilderberg. I covered Spain last year, this year, 2011, in St. Moritz, Switzerland. But I'm talking to my AFP colleague and longtime Bilderberg hound, Jim Tucker, who's been doing this since I was in grade school. For more than 30 years, he's been covering the Bilderberg meetings, hounding them, getting other media, especially in Europe and elsewhere, to wake up to this, just as American Free Press is doing now with its reporting, and its predecessor, The Spotlight, for which Jim wrote, also did back in its day. And so I admire Jim a lot. He's taught me a lot about news in general, and Bilderberg in particular. And I want to welcome you, Jim, in this interview.
Always fun.
Always fun. Too much fun sometimes. Yep. At any rate, Jim, tell the listeners here and the viewers what's significant about Bilderberg. One thing that I've come to learn from working with you is that, in essence, since Bilderbergers, that is, highfalutin types, you know, media moguls, top corporate execs, royalty, former and current U.S. congressmen, aspiring U.S. presidents, prime ministers, the whole witch's brew, reporters sworn to secrecy, the whole thing. that this collusion of the mighty, this collusion of the rich and powerful is de facto proof that major decisions are made in a conspiratorial manner.
Yes, by covering Bilderberg, I've been able to do advanced stories of Clinton's bombing of Kosovo, for example. President Bill Clinton is the most bloody-handed draft dodger who ever disgraced the White House. I mean, he dodged a draft. It was not 4F or anything like that. He just stayed out of the country until he's past the draft age that Lyndon Johnson had set for Vietnam, or the others, or the first Persian Gulf War, one of those wars. But then after he's in the White House, in his first year, he orders the bombing of Kosovo. Now, we had no casualties. Americans like cute little wars, but none of us, our guys, get hurt. But thousands on the ground died. Called the reason nobody got hurt, it was just an air war altogether. And the planes flew so high they'd be out of range of the ground rockets, so they could not precisely bomb precisely. That's why McDonald's full of children killed. That's why a bridge was blown up, along with a school bus full of little children and countless civilians.
All in a day's work for a Bilderberger-approved president like Bill Clinton.
Just a short work. Well, he himself had been made president by Bilderberg. As you'll recall, he attended a Bilderberg meeting, I think it was 1990, as the obscure governor of Arkansas, and was a year later was elected president of the United States. You bet he followed the orders. But we've done advanced stories on several wars and on the downfall of Lady Thatcher as Prime Minister of Britain. She attended one Bilderberg meeting, had nothing to say, didn't like it, and left. They were offended that she was offended. So Bilderberg ordered her to be dumped by her own conservative party, replaced by a trapeze artist named John Major. A couple of years later, I had the pleasure of chatting with Lady Thatcher, and I asked her how she felt about her reaction being denounced by Bilderberg. And she said it was I remember she used the word tribute, and this is a close paraphrase. She said something to the effect that I consider it a tribute to be denounced by Bilderberg. And then she went on to say that any head of state who surrender any national sovereignty to an international group is a horrible person. And of course, they were mad because Britain still does not embrace the euro. They still use the British pound, which is, of course, a symbol of sovereignty, your currency. Oh, there's been some others over the years, but the wars in Maggie are the biggest, I think. So we can always know what to anticipate after we get through. For instance, we know already from Bilderberg that we can anticipate a recession going through the year 2012. Pressure to escalate the war in the Middle East, the invasion of Libya, such a big threat to, a military threat to all of us.
Yes, of course.
So they're determined to build that into a major Middle East war because you make profit. There's war profits to be made. Many of these kids are the Bilderberg kids, are the descendants of heavy industry, born to great wealth. And when you spill the lifeblood of young men in the heart's blood of our women, you're making a lot of money because you're making airplanes, tanks, jeeps, trucks. And that pays off big.
War is business, more so all the time, big business.
In fact, every war we've had afterwards, it's been discovered great war profiteering in all of our wars, even back to the War of 1812.
Yeah, very, very sobering
and
fact.
It's typical of all countries, I believe, that war profiteering.
So Bilderberg, it's rare for them to encounter a Lady Thatcher, a national leader who will forego their sovereignty draining policies and actually stand up for national pride, national identity. We see the Swiss president this year, 2011, Doris Leitard, attending. We see Swiss civil law enforcement, Mrs. Barbara Genome Steiner, attending, even though a national counselor of Switzerland, a legislator, Dominique Betig, had warned her that Switzerland should not host rogue characters like Bilderberg, and in fact she should prevent them from meeting in Switzerland in the first place. What does Genome Steiner do? She attends the Bilderberg meeting. And so the Lady Thatchers of the world are rather rare. Here, even in the independent-minded Switzerland, we see officials buckling under and going to these plutocratic gatherings. But what do you make of that? The high and mighty have a way of seducing people, don't they?
Well, yes, when they
flattering them.
When you make you president or help make you head of state, then you have to be a good boy and follow orders. I know of no other head of state who has bucked Bilderberg, including American presidents.
You can only think of Lady Thatcher as having concretely and openly and definitively bucking Bilderberg.
Yes.
So that's
American
a rare
presidents
thing.
cannot attend for the simple reason that the White House press office puts out a detailed accounting of his time each day. So to the point where they'll say 11:33 a.m. President rides bicycle until 11:45 a.m. President gets off bicycle at 8:46 and walks to the Rose Garden, arriving at 8:59. The whole day, it's the size of a paperback novel. So there's just no way a president of the United States can simply not be accounted for even an hour, much less a day or two at Bilderberg. But a high White House official is there. I've just got this, I haven't seen which one yet, but there always is. And also Secretary of State, Defense, Treasury, other cabinet members, high officials throughout the government,
but
and bankers.
The key is that the aspiring president, the would-be president, Barack Obama in Chantilly, Virginia at Bilderberg before he was president, possibly Texas Governor Rick Perry, who might enter the GOP field seeking that nomination for president. The aspiring president is, of course, fair game for Bilderberg, and in fact, we're looking for the possibility of Texas Governor Rick Perry being there this year, as you know. So once you're president, as you say, your time is too accounted for, but they sure have a way of making the would-be president step into their circle to get their approval, as Bill Clinton, as you explained earlier, and possibly Rick Perry on the Republican side. So that's something they really concentrate on.
Yes, often Bilderberg will invite maybe an American senator or governor they think might be a presidential material. If he's invited back for a second Bilderberg meeting the next year, start thinking about him as a presidential candidate. If they don't invite him back, that means they've tossed the bone away. Now, it could be they were afraid this guy wouldn't be obedient enough, or he'd be hard to elect. But let's say the guy's invited back for a second year, you're not sure he's the potential president.
Correct. Now, Rick Perry, the Texas governor, was there, as you reported,
yes,
in 2007 in Istanbul, Turkey, one of the rare instances when the Bilderberg held a meeting that was not in a more Western-like nation. But there was Perry, Istanbul, Turkey. Now there's this possibility he might leave the midterm Texas governorship, just like George W. Bush did before him when Rick Perry was lieutenant governor. So now all eyes are out for Rick Perry, aren't they? And possibly showing up this year, which would mean his second Bilderberg meeting in less than 5 years.
Well, I haven't had a chance to check Bilderberg's announced list. Now it's possible, if they got it here, well, I need to check Texas newspapers and see if he's owned some kind of a mission to Britain or Berlin or some convenient European spot.
Yes.
So he could pop in and not be listed. It'd be very impolitic for him to let the Texans read about him attending another Bilderberg meeting.
Yeah, it would not be good.
His knickers and not last time.
Well, that's certainly something to watch for here. roughly in the middle of the 2011 Bilderberg meeting in St. Moritz, Switzerland, in the eastern part of the country in Canton Graubünden. Anyway, Jim, moving on, as we go through this Bilderberg meeting this year, are you looking for any new developments in terms of war and peace, monetary policy, or continuations of existing operations that Bilderberg might grab onto or enlarge or modify? Do you think any other austerity measures like the IMF measures for Spain, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, do you think anyone else is in their sights? And a particular question is Switzerland's, whose traditions are so contrary to the Bilderberg central rule model, because Switzerland has this home rule, grassroots direct democracy. Do you think Switzerland could be in their crosshairs possibly? And are they looking at forcing Switzerland into the European Union, since it's virtually the only European country that's not part of the EU, nor is it part of NATO? Do you think that could be part of their goal, get Switzerland into the fold?
It very well could be, but I don't think they'll succeed.
One would hope not.
I don't think the Swiss take them that seriously.
Do you think meeting in Switzerland is more than just a convenience? Do you think that it has more meaning, possibly? I don't know.
Well, they've been in Switzerland over the years about 4 times. Never in St. Marie before, but...
okay. So in the course of their existence, this is about the 4th time in Switzerland?
During the course of their existence, yes.
So it remains to be seen, are you saying, whether Switzerland will suffer any particular consequence from them being here?
I kind of doubt it. They're debating among themselves now over how to keep the recession going. They're debating about whether or not to raise interest rates or control interest rates, which will work better as far as controlling the economy of the world.
They look at the big picture, yes, oil prices, energy.
And they also hope to create a World Department of Treasury under the United Nations.
Another one of their big picture items, yes.
Another step toward world government.
So the particular Swiss situation remains to be seen. How about matters of war and peace? Even if Switzerland doesn't get the Irish or Greek austerity treatment a la IMF, do you think that they're going to keep this Libyan debacle going indefinitely, even while we still operate in Afghanistan and Iraq?
Yeah, they're going to try to. Now, Henry Kissinger publicly poses as a peace advocate. Inside Bilderberg, he said, keep the war in Afghanistan going, and we'll have to have a residual force there 18 months from now. And he's all part of the troop surge that Barack Obama ordered as part of the withdrawal program. Now, Obama is an obedient Bilderberg boy. They understand his political problems. In fact, they're very disturbed that Congressman Ron Paul's legislation to get us out of the war got some new votes. It didn't come close to passing 140 votes. But in years past, it only needed 2 or 3 votes for Ron Paul and maybe a couple of other brave House members. But 140, they're disturbed over that because that could translate into the House not voting to fund the war in the next budget. They can set up a rule where you got to have 60% to pass the Senate, and may not be able to get it past the Senate if the public demand for peace is so strong that it'd be politically risky to support the war.
So even these high and mighty ivory tower types are very sensitive if the people and their representatives in Congress reach a certain threshold to cut war funding. So they're not totally indifferent to the pulse of the public. They're very watchful of these things. And then, of course, they're going to try and counteract them, I would think.
Well, if they want to keep wars going, it was...
So there's no reason to believe that...
Before Clinton took us back to where Bilderberg said the United States has got to get over the Vietnam syndrome, as they call it. The first war we ever lost. In Korea, another unfortunate war, but the ceasefire was actually north of the 30th parallel, which had been the dividing line before.
Correct.
Not much territory, but significantly, they didn't yield any territory. In Vietnam, South Vietnam fell. The people there were brutally treated. Many of them fled to this country. Many of them fell off helicopters there, hanging on to, trying to get aboard an American ship as we pulled out of the war.
I see.
But it was absolute loss. So we had the Vietnam syndrome. If the United States isn't going to go to war, then it's hard to get a nice war going.
So, in terms of Libya, though, is there any reason to believe they'll put the fires out there and discontinue that war just to keep the natives, the American people, from getting too restless? Or do you think they'll arrogantly just keep that war going?
They'll arrogantly try to keep it going.
Very unfortunate. It's such a drain on our blood and treasure, and the disfigurement of our young men and women, and the deflated deaths where they say the killed or the war dead is 6,000 or 7,000 when that only is killed in action, and the actual war dead is those that die later of illnesses and disease. And so the real war dead is the tens of thousands from Afghanistan and Iraq alone, not 6,000.
Yes.
This is one of the great myths out there. I'll make that quick comment. At any rate, Jim, do you think Bilderberg, with all the press coverage that's growing so much in Europe, American Free Press holding the line every year, of course, American media waking up a little bit, do you think they'll keep meeting the way they are, or do you think they'll stop having Bilderberg meetings or modify them a lot? Are they going to keep doing the same old thing as the publicity grows?
And they'll keep trying to find ways to hide the meeting place. There's some discussion about, in the future perhaps, have the meeting at a private home. Of course, there's a lot of castles, private homes, and not go there all at once, just trickle in, so it doesn't look out of the ordinary. No police escorts. This year they took the blue decal off the cars that they always had before, so that the guard can just wave on in. He's got a blue decal that says BB in the lower right hand of the windshield. It's been that way for years and years.
But not this year?
Not this year.
What do you make of that, real briefly?
They're trying to disguise the fact that Bilderberg's going to the building.
Oh, I see. It's no BB, just so they can keep everything real innocuous looking.
Yes.
So I would wonder real quickly why they didn't meet at like Pocantico Hills, the Rockefeller estate along the Hudson River, or Cyrus Eaton's old estate, I think it's up in Canada. Why didn't they do that years ago? Why did they go to hotels? I mean, I've heard some say it's just part of it is ego driven. They like to flaunt that they can do this, and we can't do anything about it, end quote. And they can still have secret deliberations, even though it's not totally secret that they're actually getting together. Is it an ego thing? Is it an arrogance thing? Why didn't they go to private estates decades ago?
They're full of arrogance and ego, and some of them are not too bright anyway.
The pseudo-sophistication.
Yes.
So well-educated, they're stupid.
There's such a thing as an educated fool.
Correct. Interesting, yeah. But now you're saying that they might actually
It's being discussed.
say, ding, 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 why don't we go to a private estate? Hey, why didn't we think of that 40 years ago?
But they
you know?
also want to be careful that people don't say, hey, look at all those cars going into the Rockefeller house. What's going on with all those cars going in? That's why they do sort of a trickle thing, more of a trickle. Maybe if a helicopter lands maybe on his private heliport, typical 3 times a day, well, 3 helicopter landings will bring in about 45 of them.
And a typical Bilderberg meeting is around 130 to 150
Yeah.
people, right? Including royalty, heads of state, media moguls, corporate titans, NATO officials. And as we wind up this interview, it's interesting that the Swiss National Council member that I mentioned earlier, Dominique Betig of the Swiss People's Party, also pointed out that since NATO officials are part of Bilderberg, and since NATO has been killing scores of people in Afghanistan, and especially in the Libyan operation that you say Bilderberg will extend, he thought, therefore, that the nations or terrorists or radicals who are the victims of NATO operations might actually enact reprisals against Switzerland for hosting Bilderberg. But it's interesting that the Swiss officials just brushed that off, saying, "Oh no, we can allow them to meet here, no problem."
Years ago, we were able to report that NATO had become the United Nations Standing Army.
Correct, and that's by design.
Yes. Well, it also is a step toward world government. When you have your own army. The first time NATO fired a shot in anger was to invade. What the heck was that little country? But was to invade a country. They were under their charter supposed to be defense only
Against the Soviet menace, the Western Alliance.
So the Soviet Union was going to attack Western Europe. There'd be NATO to resist while the United States got troops over here quickly, strictly defensive under its own charter. But now, without admitting the charter, they simply announce that in the future, NATO will operate only at the direction of the United Nations, and the United Nations will decide where and when and who NATO fights. We didn't see great resistance to it. Our own country, which supplies and bankrolls the giant share of NATO.
And many Bilderberg is affiliated with the UN and NATO, as noted.
American soldiers wearing blue NATO helmets, taking orders from some foreign officer, has been translated into English.
Completely unconstitutional.
Yes, for Americans to serve under any flag but Old Glory. And I think a lot of countries probably have that in their constitution, or at least very much in their policy, that the only fighting we do is under our own flag, not the flag of the world government.
Well put, Jim. So, Bilderberg, all the exposure, are they weakening? A lot of them are the older members, the octogenarian tyrants, Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller. They're not long for this world. Do you see their demise in any way weakening Bilderberg as they pass on to the great?
Well, they always pass the torch to Rothschilds, pass the torch down.
The younger Rothschilds.
Yes, well, for years, there's always a guy named Rothschild who will succeed a guy named Rothschild at Bilderberg. In fact, when I first started chasing Bilderberg, I thought Evelyn Rothschild was a female, but it's male, of course.
Yeah, I was surprised to find that too. A guy named Evelyn, you know. But I've heard you say in other venues that you do believe they're weakening, maybe losing their grip a little due to all the exposure.
Oh yes.
Are the lights getting too bright for them?
Yes, well said.
Yeah, and at the very least, even they are having to be somewhat tacitly open, right? They're starting to put out name lists and watered down press releases, at least acknowledging the public to a point, right?
Well, over the years,
if only for window dressing.
Over the years, they've done that when enough newspapers would demand it, especially larger newspapers, because they don't. The Irish Times would take another bite out of their butts. They don't. The Guardian would take another bite out of their butts.
Oh, so they figure that'll
at least calm them down a little bit. It'll be a little bit less harsh. Because if we don't come to the list, there'll be big stories, strong editorials about the big secret. Why?
Yeah, where's the list? Where's the press release? Where's the press conference? Do you see Bilderberg having an official press release and or press conference, any kind of formal announcements this year? Or so far, are you seeing just hush-hush?
I don't think they will. They tried it once many years ago.
A press conference?
After the Bilderberg meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like the questions, especially mine. And they didn't like the press coverage, so they said never again.
So the press conference didn't go very well.
Not by their standards, by my standards, went very well.
Interesting. Well, we've been talking with Jim Tucker, the lead Bilderberg hound in the world, really. And I'm his apprentice, Mark Anderson of American Free Press, for which we both work. And we've been discussing Bilderberg 2011 as well as its history and future prospects. Any parting words, Jim?
Yes, I've got to get to the bank and get some money.
Yes, anyway, thanks for listening out there at AmericanFreePress.net and viewers of other programs that may carry this interview. And we'll see you next time. online, and in the newspaper, American Free Press.